Today, I'm going to try and blow your nips off. Because today, we're going to learn how ever since this game came out, all the way back in 2020, everyone, and I mean everyone, has been playing this game wrong. And no, I'm not talking about some crosshair change or buying the smite knife. I seriously mean it. And we're going to do that by taking a look at the second round in a half. So round 2 and round 14. Now, for those of you who don't know, round 2 and round 14 are often the most boring, one-sided rounds in Valorant. Whoever wins the pistol round gets 3,000 credits versus the losing team's 1,900. Also, each kill gets that player 200 extra credits, and often the winning team will have all 5 kills versus anywhere from 0 to 5 for the losing team. Ultimately, this means there's a big economical advantage for the winning team in the second round, leading to the common scenario where one team has decent guns and the other has basically nothing. This round is often just a straight beatdown, probably the easiest round in Valorant. However, sometimes a team that lost the first round will decide to force buy. This often occurs when an attacking team loses, but they get a couple kills and they plant the spike, as the spike plant gives everyone in the team 300 extra credits. This means that the money situation is more balanced, but still should favor the team that won the pistol round. Forcing does have its advantages though, as it is quite rare and so can come with a surprise factor, perhaps boosting its odds of success, but it's still seen as a niche, perhaps risky strategy to regularly deploy. But I was interested in seeing how often forcing on the second round works, so I decided to get researching by looking at every international game that happened in last year's Valorant Pro scene. I went through all of the maps, took a look if the defensive team had won the pistol, what the attacking team then did on round 2, and mapped out the results win or lose all the way to the end of round 4. The results led me to my magnum opus, the pinnacle of my career. A Google Slides with some flowcharts on them. If you don't know what flowcharts are, then I don't even know how you found this video, to be honest. But before we get into it, I do just want to say there will be an addendum to this video as well with a little pinned comment. If you're really interested in diving deeper into all of this, I'm basically just going to, explain in more depth the actual results and all of that stuff. So if you're really interested, go into the pinned comment and click the link. But let's dive into the data. And here you can see we've got the chances of winning a round and the chances of losing a round all the way up to the start of round 5, with the eventual scores over here and the percentage chances of us getting to those scores. Now remember, we're already 1-0 down, so the best score we can achieve is 3-1, and of course the worst score we can have is 4-0 down. And the way that this works is that of course you just follow the different trees to see how it goes. So for instance, when you save, you have an 11% chance of winning that save round, and then if you won, you would then have an 85% chance of winning the next round, and then it would be a 50-50, etc, etc. You follow all of the different lines. I then did the exact same thing for forcing on the second round as well, and funnily enough, forcing actually came out with a 50-50 chance exactly in my data. Now, it was a small sample size, there wasn't a ton of examples of it in the international games, but this is what it turned out with. But I was a bit skeptical of that 50% number. But I plowed on with the results as they were, and we ended up with this, where I added up the total results for each score and the likelihood of that, and then came up with a good outcome, a decent outcome, and a bad outcome. Now, a good outcome for me after being 1-0 down would be 3-1 up. A decent outcome would be 2-2, and a bad outcome would either be 3-1 down or 4-0 down. And so, totaling all of them up, we ended up with this, where if you force, the good outcome is much more likely than to happen than the save. If you force, your decent outcome of being 2-2 is much more likely than if you were to save, but your bad outcome is much more likely to happen if you save than it is if you force. So it's a pretty clear win that you should be forcing. But I was a bit skeptical of that forcing of 50% and thought that that might have just been the small sample size and that if we played it out a bit more, it would be a bit lower. So I decided to do the exact same thing, but with a more reasonable 40% for forcing instead, because you do still have a worse economy, and so you would expect to still be underdogs in the round overall, and ultimately the results came out kind of similar, where the good outcome for forcing is still much better than saving, the decent outcome is still much better than saving, and the bad outcome of saving is still much higher than the bad outcome of forcing. So then I began to think, okay, well, what number do we have to bring down that initial force round down to get to a similar kind of number to what saving seems to produce? And after a bit of maths, I was able to conclude that it's about 20%, because if we look at the results for 20%, you see the good outcome is still actually a bit more likely than saving. The decent outcome is pretty much the exact same, and the bad outcome is a bit less somehow for forcing at 20%, but this was pretty close overall. And so, am I saying that anytime that you think you have a 20% or better chance of winning a force round, that it is better than saving? Because isn't any force buy better than 20%? 20% is really not a high bar. I think you could probably buy pretty much anything as long as you just spent your creds and have a better than 20% chance. So does that mean that you should just always be forcing no matter what? Well, I don't know if I'm willing to go that far. It was a small sample size of forces, so maybe some of the numbers are a bit off. But even if they are, it seems clear that particularly when you're attacking and you plant the spike, but lose the pistol round, yeah, I think you probably should be forcing no matter what. And I know if everyone forced, it wouldn't have the surprise factor, and so likely some of the win percentage would go away. But as you've seen, the gap is so big that I don't think it really matters. And some of you are probably thinking, isn't this just a study of pros? Does this work for my bronze lobby? And actually, I think it will be even more successful the lower down the ranks you go. My reasoning for that is that in the lower ranks, the gaps between the guns are actually smaller than at the top. I know when I first started, my Spectre stats were actually better than my Vandal stats, and I'm sure that that's true for some of you guys as well. So with the gaps smaller between the guns, I actually think that forcing would work even more than it does at the very highest level. But wait. What the hell is going on? How has this become the case? This means that the whole time everyone was playing this game wrong and no one noticed. How could that possibly be the case? Well, to me, a large part of it comes down to the bonus round. This is the round where the team who won the pistol round wins the second round easily after the other team saves, and then has their decent weapons, but now the losing team has enough money saved up to buy full rifles and should be the big favorite to win that third round. And I think that this is a major misconception, that this bonus round is an easy win for the team with rifles, particularly when attacking. Because guess what? Guns like the Marshall, Stinger, Spectre, Judge, and Bulldog are all pretty good. And when you have to clear all these angles, it might not go your way nearly as often as you think. In my dataset, pro teams won their bonus round 44% of the time, which means that if you're the team that loses the attacking pistol round, what you are essentially doing by saving is saying, we're going to just give up a round, right? We're going to really not even try in this second round, to then have a slightly weighted coin flip in our favor, that if we lose, we are then 3-0 down, likely to be 4-0 down, and our opponent has a massive economical advantage. But if we win that slightly weighted coin flip, we then end up in just a straight up coin flip, that again, if we lose that coin flip, we end up again probably losing the next round because we'll probably have to save. When you put it in that context of giving up a round to just have a slightly weighted coin flip, you can start to see pretty quickly, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And ultimately what this meant, that if you were a pro team last year playing in an international tournament, if you lost the attacking pistol round and then saved on the second round, out of all of the different branches and combinations that it could go by the start of round 5, the most likely out of all of them is that you're 4-0 down at 31.33%. And so that's it. Probably saving on the second round as the attackers after you lose the pistol round, not maybe the best idea a lot of the time. But will this video change people's habits of years and years and years of the same thing over and over again? Probably not. But for those of you who do change and do force a lot more in your games, well, all you can do really is hope that I'm right.